topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm Wendy Stewart, and I'm very happy to be with you all here tonight. We're like days away from Pride Month, which is so huge. As you know, we come to you. I'm from New York City, and I'm in Milford, Pennsylvania on the weekend, but Triversity, our LGBTQ organization, Triversity, the Pride Center, is located in Milford, Pennsylvania. And as I mentioned last week, I believe on the show, we just had the Milford Borough pass our Pride Proclamation, which is really, really great, you know, and we'll be having Pride events in Milford, and you'll come into town and see those gorgeous rainbow flags flying. So everybody is like very, very excited about that. So tonight is a different segment than I normally do. One of the things that I realize I haven't really covered in these shows, and I try, as you know, to cover everything, is domestic violence, right? Why it happens. It has no gender, no sexual orientation, and what do people do, right? Well, tonight we are very, very fortunate to have two amazing people here. The organization is called VIP Empowers, and we have Randy Bannon, the executive director, and Chelsea Filatico, the community outreach person. And they're just here to like tell us everything, every question. We have our comments here. If you want to comment on the show or ask a question, please do. We are here for you. Welcome everybody to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you both for, you know, taking time out of what I would assume is an incredibly busy day to be here with us tonight. So we'll start with actually both of you. I need everybody to give their input and tell our audience, what does VIP Empower do?
Well, thank you, Wendy. Thank you for that intro, and congrats on the all the advocacy you did for the Pride Proclamation.
Triversity did the advocacy. You know what? We've got an amazing, we have amazing people, and then another organization, the Pierce Zimmerman Democrats, they all rallied for this. And it happened. So as you both know, right? It takes a village.
Yes,
okay.
And we were happy to support that. We were happy, so that's a great win. So like you had mentioned, I'm Randy Bannon. I'm with Victims Intervention Program, and I have been with the agency for 11 years. So Victims Intervention Program, we are the victim service provider in serving both Wayne and Pike counties. And we serve, like I said, victims of crime. So domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, child abuse, harassment, all victims who are experiencing the crime and their family members. So we serve everybody who has been affected by the crime. We break it down. Our services are broken down into crisis and like post-crisis. So looking at like crisis, like in the moment. So we have our 24-hour crisis hotline. We provide medical accompaniments, legal advocacy, resources, referrals, any information that anybody needs in that moment to get them safe, to get them where they need to be, and to start that healing journey. So then some of the post-crisis services we look at, for the continuation of the healing. So the individual counseling, the group counseling, continued advocacy and accompaniment to the medical appointments, and legal advocacy for any criminal cases that might come up, and the civil advocacy for the PFA courts, PFA being protection from abuse. We have we serve men, women, children, everybody in the schools. We have a whole school project that we do as part of our outreach. I should have started with our mission is to educate, empower, and envision. So we are very empowerment based. It's not our goals, it's your goals. It's whatever you want to see for your life. So we educate the community on the issues of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. We empower people to make the best decisions for themselves. And then we try to envision a community that's free from violence. So we have a lot of programs, medical advocacy, but I'll hand it over to Chelsea so that she can talk about all of that outreach that we do in the community to increase our visibility.
Absolutely. Okay, Chelsea, take it away.
Sure. So I envision my job as the community outreach manager as really just engaging the community on our mission. And we do that through a lot of education because people don't know that we exist. People often don't know anything about domestic violence until it enters their life. And then it's a crisis. So we try to get to them early. And I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, it's your show, and I comment. That's it. I love what you're saying so far. One of the points you just brought up is increasing visibility. Me, yes. Who knows about everything, I didn't know that you existed until Lisa Jenkins,
yes,
like community conversations with you, and yes. This is where that whole outreach, right, letting people know, starts to happen. Okay, please go on, Chelsea.
Yeah, well, just to bounce off of that, I mean, we've been around in Wayne County for 35 years, but when it comes to Pike County, we're only on our 5th or 6th year. So we're new, we're babies out here. So really just trying to get the word out that we exist. And that's the majority of what my job is, to increase awareness and visibility of us and our services, and also educating the community on the things that we work with, educating them on human trafficking, on domestic violence, on sexual violence, and the effects that those have on a person, on a community, on the children who are witnessing it in the home, and how different populations are affected by those crimes and that trauma.
Okay. So what are some of the ways it's interesting because in Pike County, we had Safe Haven, and yes. Right. And I knew being in Pike County, being in Milford, right, I knew all about Safe Haven because I met so many of the incredible people that had volunteered there. Cindy Stein, who was yes. an incredible advocate, and of course went on to become executive director of Triversity. But I knew about it because I was there. And as we all know, word of mouth travels far. But the fact that you're telling me you were in Wayne County for the 35 years, I've driven through Wayne County and was not aware. And if someone were having an issue that was, say, not in Milford, but closer to Wayne County, I would have never known, right, to refer them to you. How do you think is the best ways, or one of the ways, and Chelsea, you do outreach, how do you think are good ways to get the information out there?
So I honestly, when it comes to our outreach program, I think one of the biggest things we do is word of mouth. We are at any kind of community event that you see where there might be vendor tables. We are probably there with our information table, handing out brochures, talking to anybody who's willing to come to our table and interact with us. And I think even if people don't need us themselves, somebody who does. You might not know it in that moment when you're talking to us or when you're taking our brochure, but everybody knows somebody who is dealing with domestic violence or who has been sexually assaulted, whether that's in adulthood or childhood, or who is related to somebody who's experiencing it. It's all around us. Right. So as long as we can make enough people aware, then they can do the job of referring their friends and family to us when it comes up in their lives, when the time comes.
Right. I'm wondering, we have fairs throughout the summer, and, Sussex County Fair, Wayne County Fair. Do you all take a table at the fairs and get the word out that way?
No, we don't. We've looked into, oh, maybe I didn't do this with VIP, but I do know at one time we did look into a table at the Sussex County Fair, I believe, because it's right across the border from us over here in
New
Milford.
Jersey, right?
Yeah, but it was, one, very expensive, and two, you had to have somebody there at all times, at least when we were looking into it.
Okay.
And we're a small but mighty staff, so for us to have
I like
staff at the fair that runs from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. for a whole week is really, really difficult for us.
Right.
So it's something maybe we'd like to see in the future, but not something that we currently do.
Right. I guess in my own head, I'm thinking in terms of masses of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Triversity being a non-for-profit, we have a list of community outreach that we'll be doing. I know we're going to be doing Sussex Pride. We would be doing a lot of the Pride events. The issue of domestic violence is huge. And I'm not, telling you guys anything that you don't know, but I think people need to become more aware that there are resources out there. And, you've been in Pike County for 5 years, and this is the first time. I always wondered, after Safe Haven, what did people do? And I also really wondered, what did people do during the pandemic? Did you both see an increase in domestic violence during the pandemic?
Well, I can say, one thing I want to say about the pandemic is that Chelsea puts it best with our small but mighty team. We didn't stop any services through COVID. We worked the entire time. We showed up. We were at the courthouse. We were at the hospital. We were sheltering people. Nothing ever changed. And I think what we see is always an ebb and a flow. We do get that question a lot of is there a certain time of year? Is there a holiday when things seem that there to be an increase? I wish there was a rhyme or a reason. But during the pandemic, I think the needs were different. The needs were, people were trapped in their homes. So it was hard to say what was exactly happening. Maybe people now who had access because their partner went to work, that partner wasn't going to work, and now they can't have access to us. So if we had a quiet, it maybe wasn't necessarily because, that was an ebb of things, but more so, that became a little bit of a scary time when things get quiet, because we're like, well, what is it? Do they just not have access to telephones or resources?
No, but you just brought up a good point, Randy, that I didn't even think about. Let's say that somebody is in contact with you because they're a victim of abuse in their home. And then, just for example, the husband is the abuser and then he's home all the time. And then on top of that, the kids were being schooled on Zoom. Now you've got the whole family home. And just as a regular person, my husband, God bless him, he passed away 2 months ago, but when the pandemic started and, he was retired sitting in the chair in this room that I broadcast from, and I thought I was going to go out of my mind. This is terrible. I told my daughter if COVID didn't kill him, I would. Yeah, that's terrible. That was a joke.
That is a joke. Yes, we understand.
But it's people being on top of each other because everything changed during the pandemic. And now, where the kids went to school, the parents went to work, now you're all home. And people were, of course, affected financially. So it made me wonder if you guys got actually even busier than you normally are.
Yeah, we got busy in a different way, and we had to learn real fast within those first couple of days, Zoom and being, and then we have our confidentiality is so important, and we're not sure of these platforms sometimes that we utilize, like phones and Zoom and Teams, what is their confidentiality? So we had to really learn very quickly on how we can continue to reach people. We increased our visibility with billboards. That was also something that we did during COVID. We also, our chat line became live during COVID as well, so that people could maybe chat with us as opposed to calling. And some of those things have still lasted, the after effects of COVID, people, that's interesting too. I think how we interact with people has become convenient in a lot of ways. And it still continues to allow us to reach people through the phone, through, telecounseling, through Zoom meetings. And, we're still able to continue to connect with people. And, I don't know, we didn't really touch on this part, but we had a rural advocacy project a while ago where we tried to reach all the corners of Wayne and Pike. Because if any of your listeners know anything about Wayne or Pike, right, we're just like so vast. So that was us taking our services out. So a lot of our advocates still, we do that. We go out into the community. We do programs in the prison. We do our programming in the school. We go to the senior centers. We go to, I'm missing a couple, HRC. We used to do groups in PCDC, and that's something we're looking back into doing again. I'm missing one, psych rehab, so we're in,
you do everything. You want to talk about small but mighty.
Yeah, we'll go wherever. That's it. That's it. If there's a room and it's confidential, we will meet you there. And
I love that. That would be a great tagline for you too. It's amazing to me how many people work for VIP Empowers.
So we have 18 advocates who work for us. And we have 2 attorneys on staff as well. So yeah, we're a pretty vast team.
I'm very impressed with what you do. And I have to tell you, the fact that you not only lost no ground during COVID, the fact that it seems even revved it up because you had to start thinking differently, right? Because we were all behind our masks. How do you reach people? The issue I have with what has happened post-COVID, and this is a personal thing, nothing to do with you. When my husband passed away, I wanted a support group, and that was in March. Do you know, I could not find a support group in person. They all met online. And even at our organization, Triversity, we had a support group for grieving, and we had it in person, and a person was running it, and we had it at the center. I could not believe, based out of New York City, and I called over 60 places. I could not believe that there was no room. You were talking about, there was no room where there wasn't a counselor and maybe, 6 to 10 people that had lost someone. And we were talking about it and sharing it in person. Why do you think that is? And this is New York City, Randy and Chelsea. I mean, I'm still going on about it because I really felt cheated and it was something I needed.
Yeah, that is really hard. And I think we noticed that too with a lot of the trainings and bigger meetings that we have at a state level, where it used to be a conference that you would go to. You would take the time to travel there and get a hotel room and stay for a day or two and really meet people who sit at the same table and interact from different programs across the state.
It's important.
And we notice now they are all virtual, and it is disappointing. I mean, it's convenient that we don't have to get dressed. We don't have to leave our house. But you do miss this really fundamental aspect of connecting at a human level with people and reading body language and getting that one-on-one, where you don't get that in a Zoom or a big conference.
Kelsey, thank you so much for what you're saying. I mean, I am so adamant about this. And again, I'm so busy. I have podcasts and I don't have the time, but I have even the counselors that have called me for, these Zoom programs. I'm like, no, you can call me when you put it together live. It's not that hard to do. Let's face it, AA meets in church basements and in synagogues and they have AA in New York meets every single night. Not only do they meet every single night, they've got 3 or 4 locations, more than that, in New York City. I don't understand why that can't be offered for everything, because Chelsea, to your point, other than the pandemic, there's something that is lost when you don't have the human interaction or the dimension of that. People do not connect on the emotional level. And although Zoom and, StreamYard and this podcasting is great, I think it's really terrific. I think we all really need to start thinking about everything becoming live.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do. I'm happy to say that for a while, of course, we couldn't really do anything live or in person because of the pandemic and the restrictions. But as soon as we could, we did start putting on some awareness events and fundraisers that we could do in person. So most recently in April for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we do a Take Back the Night, which is a bigger national type of event that we just bring to a smaller level in, usually we do it in Honesdale. But it was so nice to see the room filled with people this year, where our previous years, there's been a good group, but this year it just felt so different. And I don't know, it just felt really good.
It was like COVID who?
Yes, it was
Right.
great.
Right. And, you know, there are people that are like, well, you know, I'm still afraid. My family is very much that, and I get it. You know, my sister is older and so is her husband. And I understand why people worry, but then you can put a mask on, you know what I'm saying? And I do think this whole thing of being in a room together is, for me, has become really personal. And I would think when you're dealing with domestic violence, you know, you need to get people in the room with each other, you know, and share, the ability to share when you're actually looking at something. You know, I'm happy to say that Pride Proclamation, you know, that didn't happen on Zoom. That happened in a meeting, and
we were there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We were there with you.
You were right. Isn't that great?
Yes.
That everybody got to share that. So I want to talk about each of your backgrounds and how you got involved doing this kind of work. Randy, you're on the top shelf here next to me. I'll start with you. How did you get involved?
Sure. Well, it always surprises me when I tell this bit of the story, because I had a dear friend of mine she's my closest friend, who we worked for VIP many, like 11, 12 years ago. And she left for a little while. We worked in a daycare together. We both were, you know, preschool teachers, worked with children. And she would tell me what she did at VIP. And I always thought, oh my gosh, I could never do that. You know,
I could never do that.
I could never do that. I remember we used to run together, and she would tell me like just some of the, you know, the problem solving and the situation. And I was just like, I could never do that. And she said, well, try out the volunteer program. And I was like, well, okay. So I did. And back then it was all in person. Not, you know, we met classroom style. I got to meet some people. Our training, if you know anything about it, can be very intensive. So I began on the hotline. And my background is, you know, is organizational leadership, but I do my education is organizational leadership, but my experience was working with children.
Right.
So a position became available as a child advocate. And it was part-time. And now I was just doing the hotline. I thought, oh, can I take these calls? What will I tell people? Will I know what to say? So
well, that was going to be all my questions to you. Like, and please go on.
Yeah, I just didn't, you know, I couldn't see myself doing that type of work. So, you know, slowly she kind of brought me in, and she was my supervisor then. And we just, you know, there was so much, it just opened my eyes, you know, similarly to how we started this, when you were like, I didn't, you know, how do you know about something, and then you learn about it, and you're like, wow, I cannot believe that this is not what I've been doing my entire life. Like you just, things just started clicking for me. And I just really felt like this is where I belong.
Isn't that great?
It is really great. And, you know, over time working with children, I kind of moved up into more of administrative roles, being the special projects coordinator. So overseeing all of our projects. And then, you know, the chief programs officer kind of was the next step. The other fortunate part too is, you know, my friend left from there, but our past director had been a mentor for me for many, many years, you know, and she always pulled me along. She came from teaching me and, you know, showing me, and she just really empowered me to kind of step into these administrative roles. One thing I want to mention though, and Chelsea can attest to this as well, is that even though we kind of sometimes, like, she does the outreach and we move into the, you know, administrative-ish kind of roles, we all are advocates at the end of the day. We have clients, we take hotline calls, there's no role in our agency that does not work with the clients in some fashion, or even have like a small caseload, because that is the thing that keeps us connected to the work. And it reminds us of why we do this.
You know, that is a really good point that you brought up, because I would think for many people, the initial thing if they are being a victim would be to pick up the phone and call. And that's the entree. How did you know what to say? I mean, what did your training involve?
Oh, so we do have an 80-hour training. So the two coalitions, the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence, those are our state coalition, and then the Pennsylvania Coalition to Advance Respect. They are the ones that they give us our training. So it lays the foundation for the language, the issues, everything that goes into it. And then it was the advocates that I worked with over the years. I can remember back in the day sitting at the table with all the advocates. We were a really small but mighty team back then. Maybe there was about 4 of us, 5 of us at the most. But I can recall sitting at the table and just being awestruck by these advocates and what they were doing. And I mean, I get the chills thinking about it, because what I felt in my body was just like, how lucky was I to land here? And I would write down every word that they would say. Language is very important to me. So how they said it, the words that they would use, it's really important to just connect with people. And that's something that we still use in our training, is because sometimes advocates get really like, we want to fix everything and we want to swoop in, and I understand, but we have to, we're humans having a human experience with another person.
Thank you for saying that. Right.
Lose sight of that. We have to remember, there's a lot going to be red tape. There's going to be resources that aren't available. There's going to be somebody who isn't meeting us in person or isn't showing up. And we just have to remember that we are humans having a human experience with another person.
Right. And you're there to be an advocate, and that everything that goes with being an advocate. What in your job with dealing with people would you say is one of the most challenging things?
Sometimes it's the barriers of the other systems too.
The barriers of the the red tape and the barriers. Could you
of the system? We're seeing people who are, I'll kind of do a little start to finish, and I'll try to put it in a nutshell. But when somebody's fleeing, they're leaving with the clothes on their back, right? And they've got nothing. And now they have to rebuild their entire lives. And sometimes resources, it's like you can't get A until you get B, but you can't get B until you had A. Right. And then that's going to move you to C. And then it's just all of these little, there's a phone number over here and the phone number over there. And as advocates, that, we're not experts in people's lives. We try to be experts in resources, and we try to be able to help people navigate these systems. And these are the forms you need for this. This is the number you call. When you call, we try to help them come up with, what do you want to say? And that sometimes gets a little exhausting. It really does.
Well, yeah, even as you're saying it, because I feel right. Let's just say the system is set up for the sake of the system. I mean, someone, you're right, leaves with the clothes on their back and 2 small kids, and may not be proficient at trying to fill out the correct forms or whatever. I would assume that you all are there to help them navigate the system, which to me is one of the biggest things involved. But also you probably have to do like relocation.
Oh, absolutely. So oftentimes relocation is one of the programs. Safety is number 1, right? We want to get people safe, because when you're safe, you can then start to put the other pieces back together. And if we need to relocate them to family, that is something we could do. A bus ticket, a plane ticket. We have provided lots of different things to get people where they need to be. One program, though, that I'm really proud of, and especially within Wayne and Pike that we talk about, is our rapid rehousing, because now we can take them from being homeless, right, in our shelter, to having their own lease and their own place.
Oh, that's
but what that does is it keeps them here in the county. So if it's safe to do that, they are now still living in this county. We're not like, shipping them back to wherever, around the world.
No, I got it.
Here and let them, their kids are educated here. They're working here. They're productive members of, this community.
How do you handle them with like a family, say the person that they left, and you relocate, say the mother and the 2 kids? the dad calls you up and says, I want to know where they are. How do you handle something like that?
Right. So our agency is completely confidential. We fall under the privileged communication because of our training. So our standard language for anybody is that we can't confirm or deny anybody we're working with. So we can't confirm nor can we deny that we're working with people to protect their confidentiality. So that is a standard practice of ours.
Right. So there's no way then someone could find out where a person is.
Not from one of our
Not through us.
Right.
Nope.
Wow, that I got to tell you, that's got to be a very tough position to be in, because I'm sure you've heard all kinds of anger from the other side. Are you specially trained in how to deal with that?
Well, with de-escalation, we do try to
De-escalation.
right? Like we try to be really, play with words to try to get people to, just understand our confidentiality and, and not alert them to anything. We try to just kind of send them on their way. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, that's all I'll say about that.
That is really tough. When you're doing outreach in the community, Chelsea, what kinds of things do you encounter that might be challenging or negative?
When it comes to outreach, I think sometimes what we do is heavy. It's really heavy. It can be really traumatizing for people who have been through it. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of we don't want to talk about that. Like we don't need you to come in and talk about this issue because it doesn't happen here. But we know it does. We know it's happening. So I think, I don't know if denial is the right word. I hate to say that, like some parts of our community are just kind of in denial that this stuff happens. Right. And they don't see the value in our work until it's too late and they need us, if that makes sense. So I think that's one of the biggest barriers we come up on, is that just people don't think they need to be trained in this. They don't need this education. Our students don't need this. Our participants don't need this. But everybody needs it, because
absolutely.
This is affecting 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men across the United States. So,
and thank you for giving that statistic. I was going to give that statistic, but I'm not qualified. I just read it before I knew you were coming on. But coming from you, yeah, that is huge. That's a huge number. Right. Right. Now, how many in that number, and from your experience, how many of those people fall into the LGBTQ community?
So nearly half, almost half of it.
That's a big number.
Yeah, I will say that half or nearly half. I don't really know like what the right wordage is here.
Right.
LGBTQ plus folks are experiencing some type of intimate partner violence or sexual violence in their lifetime. Half. That's staggering.
It's staggering because you're just dealing with Pike and Wayne County, and
that is a national statistic. I do want to put that out there though.
Right. But it's still a huge statistic. And yes. I think, there has to be, and I know you're doing it, a lot more done with education, but you're right. The challenge is you want to come in and educate, and then you're being told, oh, it's not a problem here. It's swept under the rug, when it is a problem.
Yeah, we know.
Wow. So are you able to go into schools and discuss any of this?
Sometimes. So we have a really great children's program. We have 4 child advocates on our staff. So during the school year, we don't see them. They are out of our office at the schools, physically in the schools, doing counseling with children who have been identified through the student assistance program.
What is it called? The student what program?
Student assistance program, or SAP. So each school has that. It's made up of counselors in the school who identify these kids as either direct victims or children who are witnessing violence at home. Right. And then our advocates can come in and do sessions with them at school, so they don't have to worry about traveling to and from our office after school hours. Parents don't have to necessarily make that trip around work.
Right.
And we do have programs that we can offer to students about everything, healthy
Mhm.
relationships, understanding consent, understanding red flags in relationships, and knowing the difference between what's healthy and what's not healthy, and understanding that what you see on TV isn't always the best representation of
Yeah,
love.
thank you for saying that, because that brings us to the whole thing, how kids are affected by media, right?
Yeah.
And which is endless now because
Mhm.
of what is on the internet and what's on Instagram and Facebook and now TikTok. I would imagine, because you've been around for in Wayne County 35 years, nobody was dealing with that 35 years
Mhm.
ago.
Right.
Right now, it's got to be a huge part what kids are being exposed to.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like that, Wendy, I feel like that could be a whole nother,
Oh, no,
It's a whole
it
other
is.
oh my
show.
gosh.
So
I
the
know.
Wayne schools have had the social media safety. The child advocates in Wayne County have been doing the social media safety to all of the schools. And one thing that was really eye-opening, and they just keep kind of bringing it around to refresh some of our minds, is that like there were second graders who were sexting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't know what they were they didn't know what they were doing, but they're sending pictures in second grade.
They had no idea.
Yes.
And they were
So one thing, our child program, what they've been really doing well is trying to collect a lot of stats, because that's sometimes gives us the buy-in with the school, is that if we can just survey your student body, just a little small questionnaires, nothing heavy, right? Just enough do you understand? Do you know what consent means? Have you like these types of things? And then we take that data and we've been presenting it back to the schools. And then they've been like, you got to get in here. You got to come in and do these programs. That's been increasing, and especially
Did
in
you
the Wayne
get
County
some
schools.
pushback though from the parents sending questionnaires like that around?
Well, it was it was in like a healthy relationship format,
Okay.
right? So it wasn't anything too like over. They were just
No, but it's now you really have to think that way, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Because I know in Pike County, in the Milford area, there was so much with the school board last year. And again, I'm not there. I don't have a kid in school, but I remember reading about it and watching these meetings on YouTube. All of the conferences were on YouTube, and I would watch and hear the things that people would say, and they were absolutely horrifying. And one of the things, there was a survey sent around about something, and the parents went ballistic. I mean, you have a lot more parents involved on you can't tell me how to raise my kid level. When I was growing up, there wasn't so much of that. Now it's just become, you can't tell me what's right for my kid. You can't tell me how to raise my kid. Have you gotten that kind of pushback sometimes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think that's been a stopgap to getting into some. I know in the Wayne County schools, and I don't have the questionnaire in front of me. I know that they were like some low barrier questions. They were
low barrier, right?
I know one of the questions definitely is do you know what consent is? And there's a large population of kids that had no idea what consent even meant. So we come in and we do the healthy relationships, we do the social media. Expect Respect Clubs has been a curriculum that we've used for a very long time. So,
and the school doesn't have a problem with this.
No, I mean, historically, like I was the child counselor myself, so we would do co-facilitate. We do girl power groups, and like there's a lot of ways to be able to still get the same messages across.
Right.
If we could just get in there and do them. But historically, when I would do them, I would co-facilitate with the social worker. We've done lots of groups. So we do the presentations and we try to get out to a larger group about, right before COVID in Western Wayne, I know we did a really large presentation to the whole student body, and that was really awesome. But it's really nice when we get small groups of students and do like, prevention programs, because that's really what it's all about, right? Like, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the people we see, it's the crisis and then it's the after. But it's funny.
I was going to ask you that. There is a large proportion after the crisis has
It's
happened. And
after
you
the
just
crisis has happened, yes. And
Right.
we're talking about small children. Sometimes they do things because they've seen it on TV. You've touched on it, they've
Mhm.
seen it on
They don't
social media.
know.
They're just emulating things that they have seen, right?
Right.
So it's not like it's a fault. It's just we've got to get in there and kind of like, it stunts their development a little bit. So we want, the prevention is huge. We don't want kids to have to experience these issues because it's a lifelong healing process.
Well, it can also be lifelong damaging process. And it's
Lifelong damage.
really funny
Mhm.
because you said earlier, spotting red flags, right? I know adults that will tell me something about a relationship and I'm like, oh my God, that's a red flag. Do you understand that? And you look at them trying to comprehend what is making it a red flag. To be able to have interventions younger, right? And in terms of appropriateness, how people treat other people, consent, to be
Mhm.
able to navigate those waters at an earlier age, I think you're really giving them a gift. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Thank
So
you.
in terms of funding, right, for what you do, how do you go about getting funding for what you do?
So the two state coalitions I had mentioned before, those are our large funders. We do get some
Okay, and
credit.
can we give a shout out to them again too?
Sure, absolutely. PCADV and PCAR. So that's the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pennsylvania Coalition to Advance Respect. Those are our state
I
umbrella.
love that. Pennsylvania Coalition to Advance Respect, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So
They
and
were
then
formally
Formerly,
the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. And then just a few months ago, they rebranded to be a little more inclusive and to branch out of, I don't want to say like to branch out of sexual assault prevention and services, but to incorporate all types of oppression that lead to sexual
thank
assault.
you. And that involved the word respect.
Mhm.
And exactly what that entails. So when you were both little kids, I'll start with you, Chelsea, on this one. Did you ever envision yourself like being this person that was going to go out there and help other people in this way?
No. No, I wanted to be a teacher. And I think in some ways I get that teaching aspect in my day-to-day job. But no, I fell into this work kind of like Randy and like yourself. I didn't know that these programs existed until I was doing an internship at a courthouse my senior year of college. And I met advocates who work in a program similar to ours in Sussex County, New Jersey. And I met them and I was like, oh, you've been here in my hometown all this time. I didn't know that.
You had no idea.
And so I have this really lucky and unique experience of this is all I've done with my career. Like this has been it as far as my grown-up jobs go for the past 10 years. This has been the field that I've been in. Granted, with two different agencies.
But you have found your spot, your sweet spot where you can do the most.
Yeah. I did take like a 3-month break where I tried to work at a vet's office and hated it and came crawling back to.
Yeah, okay, you hate
I'm
an animal lover. I could see myself doing something like that. You didn't like working at the vet's office?
I did, but I feel like I missed making an impact and talking about things on a daily basis that had really deep meaning to me. Not that I don't love pets and I love my dogs and cats. I do.
I get it.
Being able to come to work and talk about violence against women in a solution-driven way, there's something, it just feeds a fire inside of you that makes it worth it to get up every day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you just said it, a solution oriented. I mean, I could talk to both of you for so long because of all the programs, your experience, the things that you see, but you are doing something that's so valuable because you are out there and you are finding solutions. And when someone turns around and says to you, it's not really happening, you can say, yes, it is. And that is what makes an advocate. For me personally, I was born an advocate. I was always fighting for the underdog, if you want to use that word, and just morphed into that in my adulthood. And for whatever reason, and I was speaking at a memorial I gave for my husband on Monday. I felt the need to tell the room. People say to me, how did you get so involved in the gay community? And I said, because I've just been there from the very beginning. And to be able to affect things, change things, right? And in the end, look at what you're both doing. You're making people's lives better. How cool is that? It's results driven. In the same way, and I'm going to throw this one at you, Randy, I'm sure you have your stories where you did absolutely everything and you weren't able to change the stage picture, so to speak.
Oh yeah, we have those. And that's, this is where we go back to the empowerment, right? Because you just never know. I have a whole theory that I just won't get into, but it's about how we interact with people. And we're like a little blip on people's maps. And you never know what you said or what you did, when it's going to click for them in their lives, right? We all have to have our own experiences.
Right.
And so they come into our program, and the way that we embrace everybody, the way that we interact with them, you just never know the thing that you said or the resource or just the way you were, just your presence with somebody, how that's going to affect them, when in their life it might click for them.
Right.
So that's where you're right. Like there are lots of times when we just feel like we're running, we're going to get this one right, or we're going to get something going here. And then it just doesn't, right. It's not our goals. It's their goals. This is where the empowerment comes in. It's their life. If we can do something to make it better.
Right. But you just said it at the end of the day, it's their life. And, but when, like for me, when I'm volunteering for something, I want to make the best possible outcome. And the hard pill to swallow was I couldn't always do that. Right. And I had to just go with, I say this a lot. My daughter says it too. It runs in our family. I did the best that I could. And I need to know that I did the best that I could as the both of you are doing. Yeah. So moving forward with VIP Empowers, do you have any new programs that are coming up that you want to tell us about?
We just did our vision boards yesterday. What do we got, Chelsea?
I feel like we have a lot, but nothing.
The final I've got some time here. So yeah, you did your vision boards. Tell me what's on the horizon.
What do we got?
We broke them down by department. So each department has a vision board and what they want to see us accomplish in direct services, with our children's program, with our outreach program. So since we can really only talk to the outreach because we didn't help create the other ones, I think one of the biggest things is that we really love the idea of starting our own type of podcast where we can have these difficult conversations where people can listen.
Yeah.
But we just really want to focus a lot on training other systems, because if we can create a holistic approach to helping an individual with all of their needs, they might need us, but they also might need drug and alcohol services. They might need a mental health counselor, which is in our wheelhouse. They might need, I don't know, anything in the county.
You're right. It could be anything. So are you putting together something where you can link into other programs, like for drugs and alcohol, like for depression and things like that?
We do have a really good relationship with all of our county agencies, all of those other resources in the county. And I can't take credit for this quote, but one of my colleagues in drug and alcohol said something at a conference, no door is the wrong door. And that's what I really love. Yes, that's what I'd really love to see. So if somebody comes in to her office for drug and alcohol services, but they also need some help from VIP, she could link them up with us, no problem, and vice versa. And I just think if you're going to help a person heal, then you have to help the whole person heal. We can't just take one little bit and be like, you're good now, go on with your life.
Well, it's so funny you're saying that, because medicine has become very compartmentalized, and A is not connecting to B anymore. It is not a holistic approach. And yet your entire approach now, I so completely agree with you, because you have to help the whole person, and you have to look at everything that's going on within the person to be able to really help them. I can't thank you both enough for coming on here today. I hope you do end up doing your own podcast. I think that would be great. I can warn you about all the technical things that can happen.
Oh.
I have my wonderful producer Juan on here. When I first started doing this, I have 2 different shows I do, but first trying to do it myself and being told, oh, it's easy. No, it's not.
I'm learning that it's
all
not.
kinds of crazy things happen. But you know what? You both have such valuable information to share out there, and you really can make a difference in people's lives. I always end by taking a couple of hokey pictures of everyone on the computer. I kind of like that. So say cheese. Cheese. And one more time, it's VIP Empowers.org. Yes.
Yes. You can find all of our information. We have a golf tournament coming up. We have lots of community outreach events going on.
I love that.
You can follow us on social media as well.
Right. And where can they find you on social media?
We're on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if our TikTok is active.
No, TikTok's not active. It's a big ask.
Don't even get me started on that. It's like we can all spend all of our time on social media. It's not working because that's what it's become. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for having us
here today. Randy and Chelsea, continue the good work that you're doing. And thank you for everyone that tuned in. If you know anyone that needs any kind of help, that's experiencing any kind of domestic violence, VIPempowers.org, and you can easily access them. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.